Wow, it's been ages since I was up here. Alright, so now we have one of my personal favourites, Pam and Tommy. Based on the true story of Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee's sex tape, which ended up online, back in the days when we had dial-up modems and iPhones were merely a twinkle in Steve Jobs' eye. When newlyweds Pamela, played by Lily James, and Tommy, played by Sebastian Stan, yes, make a sex tape for just the two of them, they stash it in their home safe. But when Tommy refuses to pay Rand, his carpenter, Rand steals the safe and its contents, and the sex tape makes its way from being an underground bootleg VHS to a full-blown internet sensation back in 1997. So now I'm thrilled to welcome to our stage executive producer and star Seth Rogen, Lily James, and Sebastian Stan. Welcome everyone, let's take a seat. Alright, before we start chatting about this show, we're going to take a look at a clip.
Our own fortress of solitude. Over there, that'll be like a Zen garden, and there, you know, a waterfall flowing into a koi pond, you know, just super chill.
So Buddhist.
Yeah, totally.
Hey, you know what would be awesome? How about a meditation gazebo?
Snap!
You know, whenever life gets too chaotic and stuff, we can just go in there and we can center ourselves.
Hop in the koi pond and chill your shit out.
You know, I've been way into TM lately.
I love to.
Do you practice?
Yeah, I do it all the time. Ever since I started, you know, I've just been like way more chill and calm. Hey! Hey! Get the out of here! I see you, motherfucker!
What are you doing?
I see you! Yeah, get the out of here, Stocktorazzi piece of shit!
Do you want to get sued? Come on,
You should be
down.
suing him for invasion of privacy.
It's okay.
Excuse me.
Just amazing. The energy between you two is just phenomenal. Seth, let's start with you. I wanted to kind of hear the story of how you came to the show, and when I remember Pam and Tommy's kind of origin story back in the day, but I had no idea about Rand or what really went on. Did you know all of that? How did you kind of come to the show and want to be not only star but EP?
Thank you for having me first. It's not. I'm very rarely a contender for anything, so it's an honor to be just a contender. I'll tell you, it's as high as I'll probably get, so I'll be happy with contending. But it was an article. You know, I was around 12 years old when the tape came out. I did not know the story behind it, and until there was this article in Rolling Stone that came out that actually became the basis for the show, and it was Rand telling the story of how he stole the tape, basically, and that it was kind of disseminated completely illegally and without the knowledge of Pam and Tommy, which was not at all how I thought it was, and it was just for me personally like an experience where I was like, oh, I thought it was one thing, and I kind of created this like, narrative in my head, and that narrative was not at all accurate. And so yeah, the real story was really fascinating, and the idea of telling that story just became very intriguing to me. Rand, I don't know. I mean, I just seemed like the bumbling kind of dummy in over their head criminality plot was entertaining. I thought, and so maybe I thought that's where I would first. Jockeyed heavily to play Tommy, did not work out. Went over to Pam, did not work out. Rand Gautier, third in line.
Lily, let's talk a little bit about how you came on board, and what did you know, or how did you perceive Pamela before you started researching the part, and how did you get into the character?
Well, I was just so deeply shocked to my core when there was ever a thought that I would
play Pamela Anderson. And so when the idea was floated and we spoke about it, and then I read the scripts and they were so good and so surprising. I had no idea, like Seth was saying, that this was such a huge violation. This tape was stolen from them, and then the story that unfolds simultaneously with the birth of the internet and how that just made it so much worse, and it was a crime, and it just spoke to me, and I felt so passionate about, you know, what she went through and how awful it was, and how things happen in the media, how we treat women if these violations happen, and it just felt like such a brilliant, essential story. People. And then I just studied Pamela more and more and more, and yeah. Thank you.
I agree. And
Feel
Sebastian,
free to yell that to any of us as this unfolds.
Amazing work, Seth.
Yeah, no, just don't force it. But if you just feel the spirit take over, just.
what about you, Sebastian? Tell us about how you felt about Tommy Lee before this and how you feel about him now, maybe.
Well, I mean, again, I was actually, you know, just as sort of lost about what had really happened in terms of how much I didn't know about what had happened. You know, obviously growing up, you know, I mean, I came here when I was 12 in '95, so I think I was still young when that whole thing went down. But growing up in high school and stuff, obviously, and you know, once I found my way through the music sort of scene of rock and all that, I knew of the band, and I actually auditioned for the Dirt when they were trying to make it back in 2003 with Larry Charles, and that was from Vince Neil. So I'd read the Dirt, and I was familiar, but I didn't really know. Or I just, when I went down on YouTube and kind of just nonstop watched everything we could find on them, and just the interviews over and over. He's actually talks quite a bit about everything. He's pretty upfront about it, pretty honest, and seems to own it. So a lot of the work I felt was sort of done for me. I just had to kind of go in there and just, you know, find a way into the thing.
There it is again. So as always with playing real people, there's responsibility that comes with that. It's a complex task to take on. Did any of you meet the real people involved or reach out to them?
I did not.
Where is Rand now? I think he's living on a farm somewhere.
I heard he grows weed in Northern California, so I might have met him organically just through my day-to-day life without knowing it. But yeah, it's interesting. I also did this movie where I played Steve Wozniak, and I got to know him very well. And I, you know, I think as an actor, it's, you know, it's like debatable what it adds to your performance or not. It's kind of just what you personally want to do. I, in general, like to meet as few people in life as humanly possible. So that carries over to my acting as well. Yeah, I don't think we met our people. Yeah.
For you, Lily, I mean, you're telling us there's a lot of trauma that Pamela goes through and that we see exposed in this show that I don't think anyone was even cognizant of at the time. So, did you feel the responsibility of telling her?
Huge responsibility every single day. It was always at the forefront of my mind was that I wanted to protect her and be a good custodian of her and be as honest as possible and empathetic as possible, but also, you know, respectful. So it was this huge like thing in my brain, just constantly like just thinking about it. And but yeah, I think it's really frightening how narrative about people, particularly in you know, in the public eye, gets spun by the media or by whoever, and you overlook the truth of what happened. And for any human being to experience a violation of that kind would have just been, so it became about even bigger than Pamela, like about what the universal thing of like how that would feel, and I just wanted to really try and convey that and hopefully, you know, change people's perspective on it.
Those deposition scenes they made my blood boil. You know, you're in a situation where, you know, Tommy has not been asked to show up, but Pamela's been asked to show up to defend her right to her own body. It's bizarre.
Well, just because she's like chose a sexual person who's posed naked or been in a swimsuit means that you don't deserve to have a say anymore what happens to your body. I mean, it's so absurd, and of course the show really highlights the double standards between how men and women.
Absolutely, and then she has to sit there and watch the sex tape with the creepy lawyers, and you just think, maybe we have made a bit of progress, because I'm not sure that would happen now.
Made some progress, but maybe
little
not
bit.
enough.
And so for both you two, obviously you're playing these really iconic characters that are so recognizable. Can you tell me a little bit about how you collaborated with hair and makeup and wardrobe to get to those people and really feel that you were inhabiting them?
Well, we were extremely lucky because we had the best. I mean, they were just couldn't have happened without them. I think we were both kind of just hanging on by a thread, texting each other, going like, "Are you like on a scale of 1 to 10? Like how horrible are you feeling about what we're about to do?" You know, and actually, it wasn't until that camera test when finally it was, I think, April. We started shooting around April 20th, and then it was around this time we did the camera test. And we finally got to, you know, put the tattoos on, try the clothes, try everything, you know, and then I think we both had that moment. We were like, okay, I think we're gonna be okay, maybe. But it just was impossible without them. It was they both required such a massive transformation. I think both of us.
We were sort of 3 a.m. wake ups because he had all his tattoos and I had prosthetics, so it was like it was a long process every day to make that change.
But the mannerisms and everything is so, it's just magical. But what really struck me about the show is how they really had this tender love for each other. You really feel it. It's super sweet. And I felt like Tommy had this kind of rat bag rock and roll attitude, and then Pamela makes him this really soft person. It's just so adorable. How did you decide to settle on that kind of chemistry? Did you watch videos of them together? Like, how did you... Oh, no. You're shaking your head.
Only because it was, yeah, it was, I think it was like an everyday routine of basically, I had compiled every single, like a 2-hour playlist of every interview I could find, and I was running and trying to get 20,000 steps a day, like, you know, just on repeat, and you were, even between shots, as they were setting up, you were listening to it constantly. It was just a nonstop.
And Craig really, right from the word go, amazing director, Craig Gillespie. He really wanted, you know, this is an opportunity to see them behind the camera, like not when they're displayed in an interview and, you know, being your sort of on version, like what were they like intimately, privately together. And obviously that took a huge leap of imagination too. We can't possibly really know, but we, based on what we learned and read and watched, that was sort of where we landed.
So, Seth, I know earlier you said, you know, Rand was this kind of like pathetic figure and when you were reading the scripts. But actually I kind of love the way he has this kind of absurd redemption story where he goes to the psychic and the psychic is like, essentially, you've done some woman great harm. And then he tries to kind of get his good karma back, but it's so selfish. He doesn't care about Pamela at all. He cares about saving his own skin, right?
Yeah, Rand's not a great guy. And I think it is the instinct of a lot of actors I've found to like make their characters highly redeemable in some way, or you know, they have to like something about the character. I'm not that kind of actor. Like I liked nothing about Rand. There was like I found him like not a great person by any means, and I found that he was not someone that I related to in any way, or someone that I wanted to really modulate how likable they were. If anything, that was the conversation I had the most with Craig. Is I know I'm inherently, despite what you're witnessing here, likable as an actor, and it's something that I didn't want the character to be too likable. So that was something that we actually tried to modulate, was how many of the things that I generally do as a performer that make me likable do I do? I don't laugh in the movie at all. I don't smile really ever. I don't do any of the affable behaviors that I think make me someone that people feel like they know and can relate to, which are all highly, highly crafted and curated. I'm in no way like that. Yeah, it was an interesting exercise in modulating likability, I guess. Yeah.
It's so weird to kind of separate your likability let me look at the little gestures I do and figure out that they're like a separate thing that's just to please people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm highly aware of what I do to please people at this point in my life, yeah. I've been famous for like 20 years.
Did you feel really exposed when those were all stripped away? Was it super weird?
It was a little weird. It was a reductive process. It was stripping away the things I normally do as an actor, the kind of tools I normally use to convey thought or emotion or empathy, things like that. It felt very unnatural at first, but I also, as a performer especially, like, I am not precious, and I'm more than happy to try anything, and I trust the director, so I was willing to try. Thank you! Thank you! I'm a contender!
And just to wrap it up, what's something about this show that you guys are most proud of achieving? It feels like such a timely story now, especially with the aspect of what Pamela went through in terms of kind of her sexualization and the way that society reduced her. Tell me about something that makes you so proud to have viewed the show.
Just proud of, how proud we did it. Proud we got through, like, for me personally, I'd never done a role where I had to transform so much, I was just so sick to my stomach and scared, so to have, got through the other side as an acting experience, it was, like, remarkable for me to experience something so difficult.
I think changing the conversation around it, or at least contributing further to it, because I think that's what the intention was always. It's just something. This happened in the 90s, and we just sort of blew through it. People projected at it, media projected at it, and then there was sort of a thought about it, and the surprise for me was just how often I talked to people, and they were like, "Yeah, but isn't that what? Didn't they release the thing?" And maybe like it just people's consciousness or whatever had remained of what had happened just didn't seem to fit with the actual situation. So hopefully, just kind of contributing more to that and revisiting it, looking at it in a different way.
Yeah, I agree. That I was in like an Uber, and I was wearing a mask, and the driver was like, "I'm watching Pam and Tommy. They didn't release that tape themselves? I thought they did." And I was like, "We got one."
Well,
1 star.
5 star. I give him a cash tip, a real tip. Yeah. The tips that guy doesn't take.
Well, listen, congratulations all of you on this brilliant series. Thank you so much for being here to talk about Pam and Tommy.
Thanks for having us.
And now it's over to Dominic with another Hulu show, The Dropout.